I don't feel like you have to be super brave about it, but you just have to be able to be accepting of the fact that you will make mistakes and that's it. Mandy, what should kids and teachers do to start STEM better?
Getting started with STEM, I think, is a couple of things. One is about a mindset, about teachers being willing to start organising their classrooms a little bit differently, not being afraid to have a bit of noise that's happening as kids are engaging in different kinds of activities where they might be problem solving. It might not finish at the end of one lesson neatly. There might be different ways in which you're thinking about assessment. So all of that sort of challenges some of the typical routines of giving kids some work to do, having some questions, and then finishing at the end of whatever 45-minute period. And also being open to having conversations with your colleagues about what are you doing at the moment, what connections could we make between maths and science, for example, how can we make explicit that to the students, might there be a project that we could share together.
Definitely.
And then in terms of the students, what sort of things are they interested in their life outside of school, and how could we connect some of those things into what we're doing in science or technology or maths. Even just bringing in somebody from the outside to have a conversation with a class or with a group of teachers about, here's a local community issue. How could we get more involved in it? How could we learn something about it? And it doesn't have to be a giant way to start STEM. It can be something quite small from one person, or it could be a group of kids who want to start a lunchtime club, for example. Maybe there's some things that you're already doing to get your STEM
definitely
started.
Like the brain's ticking in terms of all those cool points, because like just knowing how accessible it is, and I guess that open mindset is such a good skill to have across all scopes of not only teaching and learning but just life in general. So kind of has like organised chaos, isn't it, a little bit? Because sometimes when you sort of envisage what your class looks like, it is actually like a good noise and there's a nice buzz about things. I think sometimes as teachers we talk too much and not listen enough. And if you just sort of scaffold around that and sort of advocate for what the learning is like, that's really, really useful. I love the fact that it's a bit about being open-minded both as teachers and learners. I think we try a few different ways to do that, even though it is chockers in terms of like, you have to go through curriculum stuff and all the other things throughout the schooling term, let alone a year. But if you can have, it's almost free, it's a bit of freedom, isn't it, really? And then you just sort of go through and say, oh, this is how it links to your problem solving, and just reiterate that message. I don't feel like you have to be super brave about it, but you just have to be able to be accepting of the fact that you will make mistakes and that's okay. So, and that's as well kind of, like to teach STEM, you have to do STEM.
That's nice. And I think sometimes people feel my curriculum's too crowded, I've got to get through all this content, there's no way I can put the STEM in. But in fact, if you look for the connections, it can help you to get through the curriculum in a way and to think about the curriculum differently. I like what you're talking about in terms of the shifting responsibility too, with teachers have to be willing to hand over some responsibility for the learning to the students. And the students have to be willing to accept that responsibility too. And that's part of the learning process as they develop those skills. You can't just say, okay, tomorrow we're doing problem solving and it's all open and you've got to figure it out for yourself. Goes back to the scaffolding that we were talking about earlier, is that as you move into this, there is freedom, but you also have to understand how to give that freedom.
It's also that project-based learning, isn't it, really? So, because I think what you think about, like, when you look at it initially, it seems quite overwhelming, but if you break it down and think of the big ideas, the connections, that's really good. Because sometimes you can see the end game and it's like, oh, this is great and all those links, but really it's just those little step-by-step processes you go in. And that problem solving as well, because often schools, like when you teach, you can be quite regimented, for a better word, like you go to skill 1, skill 2, whatever, and you get to the problem solving bit and you've only got 5 minutes left. It's like, so I'm like flipping it the other way around a little bit. And just because the higher order skills do take more time, and if we can just invest in a bit more time with that, kind of helps a bit as well.
Sometimes people think they've got to really get all the content into the kids before they can have the problem, but if you say, as you flip it and start with the problem, and then what do we need to learn in order to be able to solve this problem, can be another way to drive that that learning too.
Yeah, and it's kind of nice to know because it means that we're already kind of doing it already.
Yeah.
You just need to reinforce it a little bit and just remind yourself,
Yeah.
Which is really encouraging because it's not like you're learning anything brand new. You're just actually seeing it a different way.
Changing the sequence.
Correct.
Even.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, you don't have to start with question one always. Like,
yes.
So mix it up a little bit. And that's a great way to problem solve as well because, it does get messy in the real world, right? So if we're looking to kids are not robots, right? So they have to be able to learn in different ways, and equally teachers are not robots as well. So I think having that discussion and even, hopefully by encouraging our kids to do that, that talk gets back to other students and at home, and then just it's sort of like a nice little cycle, isn't it?
And getting started too, I think, is also getting started with learning some of those skills. So what's the difference between cooperating in a group and really collaborating? How do we bring everybody in so that they have an equal opportunity to have their voices heard, or how do we learn the steps of problem solving? So you're integrating as well as bringing the skills in, and it doesn't all have to be done at once, but you have to think about those as different components.
Yeah, and is that also like something that you sort of have to make really explicit? Like you take a step back and go, okay, we've done 5 or 10 minutes of, the
working
activity.
together.
And then you sort of go, okay, this worked really well. However, you could do that. But is that sort of the discussion that has to be had?
Yeah, I think that's really helpful for kids to start processing what's going on instead of the doing of it, the thinking about the doing of it, and then how do you move forward with that? It's really valuable.
Yeah, nice, awesome.
Great, thanks.